Hello and welcome to the wrap-up segment for our Blue-Black Fairies deck that we spent some time playing today. Those matches went about as I was expecting. They were all fairly close. I feel like with a little bit of better luck, we probably would have had at least one of those matches go 3-2 in favor of the Fairies deck, as opposed to them all going 2-3 in the other deck's favors. As a whole, I kind of liked what the deck was doing. I feel like this more aggressive slant on the archetype is probably a little bit better suited for a format like Modern, where you're generally rewarded for being proactive as opposed to being reactive. There's just so many different strategies going on in the format that generally you want to be the one forcing your opponent to do things with you. Smuggler's Copter, just got a really healthy reminder of why that card was too good for Standard. Card seemed very powerful. It was nice to have our Bitter Blossoms basically have an impact on the board the turn they came into play by crewing that copter. Another thing that I really liked was that the resource base, not dealing a ton of damage to ourselves, was about as good as I was expecting it to be. That being said, Bitter Blossom was a touch awkward. Even some of the games that were going long, the fact that we didn't have any way to gain life in our main deck meant that it basically put us on a clock. We had one, I think, or maybe even two games where I just had two Bitter Blossoms out, and just there was one game I literally ended up 1 point of damage short of being able to kill my opponent just because the Bitter Blossoms were draining me out when they didn't have any presence. I feel like if I were to play this deck again, I would want some kind of reasonable life gain in the main deck. I think if I were to think of things I wanted offhand, I think I would start with 1 to 2 copies of Sword of Light and Shadow, just a very reasonable card in the format. It's whenever the equipped creature deals damage, you gain 3 life. You can turn a creature from your graveyard to your hand, so that would allow us to rebuy our value creatures like Snapcaster Mage and Spellstutter Spray, and Vendilion Clique, while also buffering our life total a little bit against Bitter Blossom killing us. It's also another card that's very good against the grindy decks. I could also see something like a main deck Batterskull being reasonable, or perhaps a Kalitas, just cards that are good in the format in general that also happen to generate incidental life gain for us. We didn't get to post reserve or post board games with the decks at all this evening, but we're kind of taking our mulligans accordingly. One of the things I really like about this deck is that even Modern's the kind of format where a deck like this often has their discard spells not line up well in the late game, or they're playing against a spell-based combo deck where their fatal pushes aren't particularly good. And Smuggler's Copter and Liliana the Veil kind of give us ways to put those cards to use or generate some kind of value with them, opposed to leaving them just rot in our hand. Another thing that came up that was a little bit awkward a number of times tonight was that Inquisition of Kozilek is not Thoughtseize, and even though we weren't taking a lot of damage from our mana base, we could probably afford to take a little bit of damage from our discard spells in the main deck. I think if I were to play this deck again, I would probably go a 2-2 split on the main deck discard spells, just 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Inquisition, especially if I was finding a way to fit in, a couple of ways to gain life in the main deck, just to offer life total a little bit. At any rate, if you're looking for something that's a little bit different from your standard green-black decks to play in Modern, I would highly recommend giving this deck a try. That being said, I also don't think it's quite as powerful as what those other decks have to offer, just because, we just don't quite keep up with cards like Tarmogoyf. Something like Spellstutter Spray allows us to have a little bit of flexibility and kind of be tricksy, but it's definitely lower than cards like Dark Confidant and Grimflare and Tarmogoyf on a raw power level. At any rate, folks, today, thank you for watching. Remember, if you enjoyed the video sets, to like them on YouTube and share them on your social media. You can also support my content by becoming a patron on Patreon, or becoming a subscriber on Twitch, or by checking out my sponsors, all of who have links down below the stream along with some discount codes. So thanks for watching. We'll be back soon with some more wonderful Paper Magic content.